American missiles are so intelligent they are impossible to evade. But they have an unforgivable weakness: their insane million dual unit costs. Up against worthy rivals that use similarly expensive missiles, this is a fair battle, but against lesser rivals it is a massive problem. Countering $2,000 drones with $2 million missiles is crazy insane or sane crazy. And American taxpayers hate it, but what is the US to do when lesser rivals wouldn't stop with the constant attacks? Whether it be directly at US forces or forces of us allies, the US has had to deal with less equipped rivals for the better part of this century. Operation Enduring Freedom, which began in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, saw the US fight against insurgents and terror groups related in some way to the attacks. While they were no easy rivals by any means, they weren't exactly the biggest challenge for the US, the Allies, and the billions of dollars of military assets they had at their disposal. The recent battle on the Red Seas with the Yemen-based militant group known as the Houthis is the latest of these asymmetrical battles the US has to face. The US-Houthi conflict began when the US and allies decided to restore order on the Red Sea, where the Houthis were wreaking half-half. The Houthis had declared hunting season for any ship linked directly or indirectly to Israel. According to the Houthis, this was to force Israel to stop its siege on the Hamas militant group in Gaza. A siege that began in response to Hamas's invasion of Israel last year to murder well over 1,000 Israeli people and abduct many more. Israel has sworn its siege will not cease for any reason whatsoever. The Houthis didn't stand down either. Every ship on the Red Sea, military or civilian, was a potential target for the militant group. The world's largest shipping containers had to entirely reroute their travel paths, and smaller companies were even more affected. The disruption was massive, considering that a third of the world's container shipping passes through the Red Sea. To curb the disruption, the UK and other allies formed Operation Prosperity Gordon. The task to deter the Houthis' attacks on the Red Sea or counter them should deterrence fail. Deterrence failed. Quickly the Houthis not only continued attacking passing ships, but also aimed their weapons at the warships of Operation Prosperity Guardian. Kamikaze drones laden with explosives, anti-ship cruise missiles, and even an anti-ship ballistic missile were launched at the coalition forces. Many of these projectiles were intercepted by air defense missiles, after which the coalition retaliated against the Houthis. However, while it was a resounding victory for the US-led coalition, this asymmetrical war had once again shone light on America's disproportionate defenses to attacks. The US had spent million dual missiles defending against Houthi kamikaze drones, estimated to cost $2,000 at most. Million dual missiles to intercept drones that cost the same as an iPhone. It's a similar case in the ongoing Russo-Ukraine war, as cheap kamikaze drones have also become a menace to expensive air defense systems. Russia is reported to have bought as many as 2,000 Shahad kamikaze drones from Iran. Each of these Iranian drones cost $20,000 but can deal damage worth significantly more. Intercepting them would also cost significantly more. And thanks to their relatively low costs, Russia can deploy them in swarms, meaning one or two could manage to sneak past defenses and deal costly damage to Ukrainian infrastructure, while Ukraine launches expensive air defense missiles received from allies like the US to intercept the rest. Once again, cheap kamikaze drones proved to be too much to handle by being too little to handle. A third and final scenario was the recent Chinese balloon that floated over the US at the beginning of 2023, after floating for a week of nationwide fear. The US deployed its most expensive fighter, the F-22 Raptor, to destroy the balloon using the $472,000 A-9 Sidewinder missile. Yes, you heard that right, a $500,000 missile to take down a balloon. Once again, Americans were furious. Questions arose on why the Raptor didn't use its onboard machine gun to drill 1,000,000 holes into the balloon. A similar question was asked recently with Operation Prosperity Guardian. And seeming eagerness to use missiles to intercept incoming drones when they had guns on board. However, while these questions may have valid lines of thought behind them, using the more expensive options to take out threats often have powerful justifications. Starting out with using cannon rounds as a cost-effective alternative to missiles, that really boils down to which is more effective in performance, explosives have historically been more destructive and could come particularly in handy when there is a hidden signal-emitting device somewhere in the target. Cannon rounds may somehow miss such a device, but the shock waves of a missile detonating on or around would easily solve that problem. For more comprehensive destruction, explosives are the way. In addition to this, American missiles are generally guided and therefore very accurate and impossible to evade. This is a crucial capability for missiles at a time when targets are tiny and highly maneuverable. It just so happens that these capabilities, which come with custom parts and in tiny batches, are mighty expensive to achieve. Then there is the factor of the shelf life and operational lifespan of these weapons. Air-to-air missiles, like any piece of military hardware, roll off the assembly line with a clear expiration date. This service life is determined based on a number of factors. Primarily the anticipated lifespans of the solid fuel rocket propellant used in the missile's engines, and the lifespan of the onboard battery responsible for powering the missile's guidance systems and control surfaces. These expiration dates can be superseded through pricey service life extension programs, which are common practice for missile systems that are no longer in production. And without a viable replacement, an example of such missile is the LGM-30 Minuteman III ICBM, which entered service in 1970 with an intended 10-year lifespan, but thanks to repeated upgrades has served the U.S. for over half a century. When it comes to easier to replenish stockpiles of in-production missiles, the situation is different. The expiry dates are more permanent, as there's no economical reason to extend their lifespan when new units could somewhat easily be produced. The AIM-9X Sidewinder missile, for instance, has a projected 20-year lifespan, and America first started taking delivery of low-rate initial production AIM-9XS in 2000. That means that any of the first deliveries of these missiles that haven't already been expended aged out of service and had to be decommissioned. Besides the expiration dates, missiles can only fly by for a certain number of hours. The longer they stay in the air, the less time they have to be used. Once they exceed their allowed number of air hours, they're likened to being expired because their integrity is now in question, due to the harsh conditions they've sustained during flight. In a real way, missiles are either used or wasted, so why not use them for what they were made for now? This isn't to say the U.S. military is completely oblivious to the high-cost issues that hunt these missiles. In truth, they actively hunt for the most cost-effective missiles in their arsenal. It just so happens that the most cost-effective missiles are usually the same two costly, powerful missiles the U.S. just can't have enough of. When the U.S. needs to shoot a threat out of existence using an air-to-air missile, it is quite often either the A-9 Sidewinder, which the Raptor used to take the Chinese balloon out of the sky, or the more powerful A-1220 Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile. To know what makes these missiles so useful in a wide array of missions, we must take a closer look at them, starting with the AM-9 Sidewinder. The AM-9 Sidewinder is a supersonic heat-seeking, air-to-air missile developed for the U.S. Navy for air defense, but thanks to its impressiveness, was later absorbed by the U.S. Air Force. The 187-pound missile, armed with a 20-pound annular blast fragmentation warhead, is launched from fighter aircraft, such as the F-A-18, F-22, F-35, and so on, to strike a locked-on target over 10 meters away. An infrared guidance head enables the missile home in on target aircraft engine exhaust, so despite the target's best efforts, it may be unable to shake off the incoming missile. The missile has detachable double delta control surfaces behind the nose to improve its maneuverability. Combine this with an agile thrust and a vector-controlled airframe, and the missile is able to keep up with even the most maneuverable targets. Thanks to all of these, the A-9 Sidewinder has earned a spot in the militaries of more than 24 different nations, mainly NATO member nations and other US allied nations. The missile has a unit cost of $400,000. A-20 AMRAAM. The AM-1120 Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile, or A-10 AMRAAM, is a new generation all-weather missile in service with the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, and a host of US allied nations. Like the A-9, this missile is produced by Iran and can also be launched by various aircraft, including the most popular ones, the F-15, F-16, F-A-18, F-22, and F-35. The missile can also be launched from land via American and Norwegian ground-based launchers, derived from the Sparrow range of missiles. The A-120 was designed to be quicker, smaller, and lighter than the Sparrow. It is also quite intelligent with its beyond visual range and home-on jamming capabilities. The 330 pounds missile, armed with a 40 pounds high explosive blast fragmentation warhead, is guided by an onboard active radar with a narrow navigation system, and the launch aircraft's fire control radar, although not necessarily both, thanks to its self-sufficiency and guidance. The missile has a fire and forget capability that allows the pilot to fire a number of missiles simultaneously at multiple targets and leave the scene immediately after as the missiles fly into their target for an explosive conversation. The AM-120 AMRAAM has a unit cost of $1,900. A $1 million missile, or a $500,000 missile to shoot down balloons and kamikaze drones, of a few thousand, must be the opposite of everything towed in economics class. However, it ensures the job is done, and that is enough for the US military, until a more wallet-friendly solution surfaces. If that makes sense, subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Thanks for watching.